Describe your journey to consciousness, including significant facilitators, literature read, enlightened, relevant, eye-opening experiences, conferences, seminars attended, etc.
Yeah. First, I'd like to thank Divine Creator for my well-being through Him and finding Him and finding my purpose. I'm truly blessed and continue to humble myself throughout the day, especially in the beginning of the day. I also like to thank my mother and father for giving me a strong foundation from a moral perspective, not so much from an academia perspective. They taught me a moral arc that has really blessed me and not going off on the deep end when I went in that direction in my life. So what I found out, there's a lot of people don't have mothers and fathers who love them. And I was blessed to have a mother and father that loved me all their lives. And I made sure I took care of them when they got older as well. So I have to state that as well. Then I'd like to thank my queen, Gloria. I prayed for somebody to come into my life. And it took about a year. It was not a pop-up toaster. And when she came into my life, that's when I really began the 360 degrees, the divine plan for man and woman. She can't get it without me, and I can't get it without her. But when you come together in harmony, that's where life is so much more fulfilling all throughout the day and all throughout the week, all throughout the month, all throughout the year, and throughout your lifetime, if you respect and honor that covenant. And so I'm here because of that. Those things first. In regards to consciousness, first I like to say in that regard is that life is a learning experience for those seeking knowledge. There's a lot of things people are seeking in life. And there was a time I was not seeking knowledge. I was seeking other things. I don't want to go into that, but I'm quite sure young men, know what I'm speaking about. And then you get caught off with the wrong crowd. I remember the old people used to always give you good advice. They said, birds of a feather flock together. When you move out of that space, in those spaces where you don't have to be at, then you will find your real destiny. Okay, and that's what I did. It begins in my childhood. A lot of things in our life begins in our childhood that impact our lives when we get grown. And it may have a positive impact or it may have a negative impact. So when I was in the second grade, I have an affinity with how an alphabet can make a word, how a word can create a sentence, how a sentence can create a paragraph to tell a story. And I was amazed by that. I was like, wow, that's amazing. I'm only in the second grade now. And I said, I want to do that. Yeah. The next thing was I have a big family. And they were always around my father because my grandmother and grandfather lived with us. So everybody came to see Mama. I don't know about Papa, but they came to see Mama, Grandma. And everybody, every weekend, somebody would come into the house, no telling who knocked on that door, who it was going to be, but it was going to be somebody in my family. So my family I had a sense of belonging in my family. And then they were speaking about people that I didn't know. And I was like, I wonder who they are. So when my Aunt Frances, who was the sweetest person in the world, and she would give they moved out of Harlem. Her husband was a very successful businessman. He moved out to Mount Vernon, Westchester County. They bought a beautiful home. She used to have a family reunion July 4th to begin the summer and Labor Day to end the summer. And we had family from all over the countries. So then when they spoke about a person that I heard about, then I identified the face with the name. And that made me recognize who that person is. So I've always been a person like that too. When I speak about somebody, I want to see that. I want to show that person to you. If I'm with you, here's my son. I speak about here's his picture. Here's my queen, you know. So I want to bring it to life, okay? And so I transfer that into a childhood setting. I'm in the 4th grade, 5th grade, and we're speaking about history. You get your history lesson, and they're speaking about the contributions of this person and that person. And I said, wow, how come they don't say anything about black people? And so the images I was seeing was Tarzan, you know, the way he was commanding the black Africa and how Africans was kind of docile. And even sometimes you'll see cannibalism in a comical way. So when I was younger, when they spoke about Africa, I didn't want to walk out the room. I wanted to run out the room. So I began to feel maybe black people didn't do anything and we were inferior. And my mother and father, they never knew that because I was so quiet. I never talked too much. I kind of listened, but things that impacted me, even today, that impacts me for what I'm doing now. And why I'm here, and why this brother Toussaint, I also like to thank brother Toussaint, let me stop, go back, for inviting me into his medium, and I wish him well. I'll continue blessings on his good health and bringing all more people from different ethnic backgrounds, because nature has no color line. That's a man-made construct. But anyway, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, he said something profound, the father of Black History Month. He said there's 2 ways to receive an education. One is given to you, the other you give to yourself. And so I began to slowly give myself education. Why? I want to seek knowledge. And I slowly started seeking knowledge, slowly. But what happened, what really took it to another level is when I joined the TWU, Transport Workers Union. I worked for the transit system for almost 30 years. And I had a love for history, so why not join the Black History Committee? That's what I love. If they had a musical organization, if I was a musician, I would have joined that. But history is I love. And writing about history as well. And so I found a purpose where learning about history is one thing, but utilizing it, this one, it becomes more purposeful, more meaningful. We would have a theme every year, and we would have to find out what that theme is and brainstorm. Who's going to be the keynote speaker for that theme? Who's going to open up the keynote speaker for the keynote speaker? And what are some of the visual pictures that we're going to have to encompass and capture that theme as well? And then I would write something every year for our heritage around that theme. And it was a small, basically, synopsis regarding our Black History celebration every year for the transit system, which is one of the largest transit systems in the world. And so I joined that, and I found my purpose and direction in life. And it grew. And so I would say that's where I began my consciousness, not only to read about history and talk about history, because there's something called intellectual masturbation. It's good to talk about history and exchange ideas, but what are you doing? How do you make that history come to life? How do you activate that history? And that's what I like to do, with others to join me, like a band. You got a song, you got skills, but someone else got skills. So we got to find a subject matter. Usually I'm the one that finds the subject matter, and I get other people to come on board to activate that history, to restore history, to preserve history in different creative mediums. And that's where that's where my forte is at, and also relating to programs. See, did I have a PhD or a master's degree? No. I'm self-educated. I ain't taking a backseat to no one. And I'm proud of you for getting that. But at the same time, you don't know everything, and neither do I. Only a fool knows everything. But rather than me and you go at odds, let's join our hands together. Maturity, wisdom. We on the subject matter. It's not about you and it's not about me. It's about that subject matter. How do we make that come alive? Activate that in a very robust, purposeful way. I love to do that. And that's what I've basically been doing.